Welcome back to the Driving Line YouTube channel. Today we've got a fun one where we'll be installing a sacrificial bash bar, new wheels and tires, and a fully custom wide body. Now let's get to it. This is the TFF Bash Bar. The welds look really good and the metal looks good. Of course, this is just bare metal. We did opt for the jack plate, which we've talked about, I think, a little bit in the past. We're actually going to be painting this yellow to match. Everything looks really good. These are made in America, made over there in Florida. Take a couple weeks to come in, but it's like a nice quality unit and it's really not breaking the bank. Way better than bashing in the actual car. The bash bar is now cured and we're going to be going ahead and bolting this up. There is another indication that this car was in an accident right here. We can see a little bit of a wrinkle and it's a little bent in. That shouldn't affect us while we're bolting everything up because it doesn't look like it's a huge bend in anything, but it's just something else that I've noticed with the car, which I keep calling the gift that keeps on giving.
We then began to install the rear bash bar by first drilling the additional holes needed in the factory crash bar. We grabbed some hardware from our local Ace and bolted it all together. This was a breeze with the help of our power tools. If you're installing a bash bar on your car, you want to be sure you don't over torque these bolts because you can end up bending that base plate. Next, we cut a slot into the rear bumper so that we could create the clearance needed for the toe strap mount. We first lined it up and then marked it from the backside. Then we cut out the slot for where it would poke through. After that, we did our final test fit and rebolted everything together.
We have the rear bumper on now and I have everything in reverse. I think when we were playing around with some of the bulbs, we knocked the filament out. I already checked. So my low filament is bad on that little bulb, but on the high, which is when the brakes are hit, then everything lights up. We will need to change these to LEDs so that way they can match the license plate. And I'm super stoked to have this backup camera, which you can see here. And we were just doing some testing just to know the distances between green, yellow, and red. I can't express how happy I am with those little things, especially with where this car started. I was at Winter Jam last year, which is really what got me looking into Corvettes and drifting. It was so busy in the pits that I was just getting stressed thinking about it. There's so many noises, there's so many spectators walking around at events like that. I would hate to bump into someone. Most of the time, teams had people like directing them out, but just in case you don't have that, then I would like to have a backup camera. You guys saw the rear end, which we did the bash bar on. We painted that, we got that mounted, and it looks great. It's also gonna be our sacrificial layer as we do some wall rides. Key latch, that was something that we really need to focus on in case we get locked out of the car. Programming keys is really important just to have multiples of those. We wanna make sure that we always have at least 2 keys just in case anything were to happen. And then you also saw us do the backup camera. That was really important for me just because the safety aspect of it.
After this, we unboxed our new wheels from Motegi Racing. Unfortunately, they were back ordered for the white versions of these wheels, so we had to take matters into our own hands. With supplies found at any local hardware store, I began prepping, painting, and clear coating these brand new wheels to turn them gloss white.
We now have the wheels painted, and this is with the Rust-Oleum Professional Enamel, which is going to take a really long time to cure. I read online that in some instances it can take up to a week to cure, so we're going to be really gentle with these while they cure. I'm going to go ahead and just put them back in the garage. Luckily, we have some downtime for a couple days, so we shouldn't have to touch them. No one should bump into them, and that'll allow these to harden because once enamel is cured, it is really, really tough. Overall, for my first time, pretty good. I think I have one little run right there. Maybe you guys can see it. Just in the corner of that spoke where I got a little heavy, but other than that, we did really, really well and minimized the overspray at my papa's house. The Motegi MB Battle V's, and these are also wrapped in Nitto tires, and the ones that we chose are the Nitto NT555 G2s. And this is going to be on a staggered setup. So in the rear, we have two 65/35 18s. In the front, we have two 35/40 18s, and those are going to be our drive or our steer tires. You can see here, these are the NT555 G2 tread pattern that everyone knows and loves. I actually had these on my Mustang for a bit until we went to the NT01s for the track, but these are great for the street. They also have a ton of tread. So these are gonna give us a lot of life as we're drifting on the track. We have the wheels and tires mounted, and there is the poke that we are looking at from the stock fenders. Now these are base fenders. The Z06 and Grand Sports actually have wider fenders. The fenders that we're gonna be installing though are even wider than those. This might seem like really aggressive wheel and tire setup, but it's actually weak when we consider the wide body that we're gonna be putting on. So we're actually gonna be spacing this out just because no one really makes a single piece wheel for this. So we're gonna actually customize that ourselves with a spacer. Oftentimes you will hear the argument that spacers are unsafe. Well, that's not really true. About using quality products with the right offset, the right center bores and things like that. So we're gonna be able to go through all of that to really dial in this fitment. I'm a big fitment junkie, as you guys probably could see with the Mustang and my Bronco and things like that. Really particular about how that all sets up. But I'm gonna go through everything and how we dial this in and get it fitting just right. This is the 945 Garage rear wide body kit, and we also have the fronts, but we first need to cut out all of these little pieces so that way we can fit this up properly. So we're gonna cut these rear side markers out, and we're also gonna cut the front fenders because they have little vents. Now that we have all of the pieces cut out on the fenders, we're actually going to be doing the line up to it, which means we literally need to hold this up and line it up. Now, of course, you can't do this one person, so we're going to use some blue tape. We're also going to make sure this aligns well. We do still have to cut the underside of the fender, like under here, to give us that extra clearance. And then the way we're going to be mounting this is using well nuts. So when you have a wide body kit, there are a lot of different ways that people mount them. Sometimes they do riv nuts, sometimes they do reverse mount. And in this case, we're doing a well nut. What that is it is a rubber nut that goes inside the hole that you drill on the actual body of the car. And as you screw into it, it sucks it in and it expands with that rubber, and that's what holds it in. It is slightly flexible, which is in my mind the best way to do this as we drift and things might bump up against each other, because fiberglass has a tendency to explode whenever it's hit with a tire. So we want to try to give this as much give as possible so that way it'll last as long as possible, because these are not cheap. What we now know is that we can cut all the way up until this line where it makes contact, as you guys can see underneath the fender there. So this is where we're going to be cutting up to give us all that extra clearance that this wide body gives us. We have the first hole drilled, and this is through the fiberglass into the fiberglass body. Really simple, but this is a Cleco. So as I squeeze, you can see it pushes out, and as I let go, it widens. Kind of like a drywall anchor. So that is what we're going to use to secure this in the meantime. So this is an 1/8 inch. Our well nut will actually be larger, and then in the meantime, this is gonna hold really, really solid. So keeping it nice and flush, and we know we've got the right spot for all of our other pieces. This is our line that we have from the inside of the fender, but we don't wanna cut all of it because that would actually reduce the mounting points that we have. The main point of this cut is to clearance the wheel going up and down. This wheel should not be turning at all. This is the rear, just to remind you guys. It's really about, as it compresses, do we get extra room up top? So that is why we're cutting at the width of the wheel with the tire that we'll be running all the way up to where you won't see it and back down. You can see that we have all of the clearance that we need, so that way this can bump up and not rub on the inner fender. This will obviously overlap a little bit. We will get spacers to make this more aggressive, but we still want this to be very usable because we have the angle kit and we need to be able to turn fully without rubbing. These are going to be our Track Spec Motorsports vents that you can see right here. So we're gonna be cutting holes in the hood while we have everything out to cut with the air lines and everything. We figured now is the best time to do that. So we're gonna be putting 2 on either side, 1 down the middle. It's very important to have good cooling for the Corvette. They're not necessarily known for great cooling because they are wedge shaped. They're great at high speeds where you have a lot of air flowing, but at lower speeds, because of that wedge, not that much is flowing through the radiator and things. So being able to evacuate all that hot air from the engine bay is really important, and that's why we're gonna go with these Track Spec Motorsports vents. These have been proven. They're used in road racing. They're used already in drifting for Corvettes. So we went with those, and we're supporting, again, a local business down in SoCal. Now we have all of the vents temporarily mounted using the Clecos, and this is where they'll stay and how they'll stay until we are done wrapping the car, because we do still need to lay down the Miami blue, all the stickers and things like that. This allows us to later remove that and then wrap under this edge so it's nice and clean, because the way that you fully mount these will be riveted. Even more of a reason to use and get some Cleco clips. We've now wide-bodied the C6 Corvette using the 945 Garage wide-body V1 fenders. These are over fenders, so as you saw, we bolted them on. This gives us about 1.5 inches wider each side over a stock C6 Z06, which is a stock wide-body car. That is why you see these wheels sunken in so much, and we're gonna be ordering some custom wheel spacers to make sure that fitment is absolutely dialed in. The reason why we chose that wide body is because it's American made by a guy named Danny. It's a small business that we're supporting, and this allows us to run more aggressive wheels, which really gives us that authentic Japanese drift style. You saw us also install the rear bash bar. That is a sacrificial bar, so that way as we ride up against walls, we're gonna be able to quick swap that so we can bolt it on, bolt it off as needed, so we can continue racing and enjoy a good weekend, especially as I hope to one day be in drift competitions. We also put in these Track Spec Motorsports hood vents. These are not fully mounted yet, but they will be as we get to that point in the build. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned to Driving Line, where on the next episode, we're gonna continue on turning this C6 base into a C6 Japanese style drift car. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then please comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks for watching. I'm Lauren Healy, Team Nitto driver and off-road racing champion. Driving Line brings you weekly episodes and series, so hit subscribe. Don't miss the next video with more automotive content that fuels you. We'll see you out there.